Amor, Spanish for love, love of God and love of man. It is this love that you will shape from the formless feeling in your heart into a refuge for an impoverished Mexican family. But love alone cannot build a house, and so in this video we will show you what it takes to transform your love into an Amor house. The house consists of 2 rooms built on an 11-foot by 22-foot reinforced concrete slab. The walls are 2x4 stud walls wrapped in tar paper and a single layer of stucco. The walls support a shed roof, which is covered with roll roofing. This finished house can be built by an inexperienced crew of 12 people in as little as 4 days. Here's how.
Most of the time, the family will do the best they can to level the pad where the house will be built before you arrive. But nearly every site will need a little excavating before it is perfectly level. First, drive a stake in the ground where one side of the house will be. Select what seems to be the highest ground. Tie a string around the stake and draw it diagonally across the pad to the opposite corner. Pound a stake into the ground and wind the string around it, making sure that it is taut. Now don't tie it off because you will be moving it. Now put a string level in the middle of your line and check it. Have someone else adjust the low side of the stake until the bubble of the level is right between the lines. Measure to see how much higher the high side is. Use picks and shovels to cut this side down half of the distance you have just measured. Use the ground you are removing to build up the low side so that the pad will now be level. The loose earth should be tamped or packed down as much as possible. Have the crew walk on it, or if you have one, use a tamping tool. Check periodically while you're digging to see if you're level. Be careful not to dig down too deep. Use a 12-foot 2x4 and a framing level to check the level of your pad every few feet along its length. When you're satisfied that it's level, you're ready to move on to the next phase.
All the lumber needed to complete the house should be on the site when you arrive. If it isn't out in the open, ask the family where it is. Often they will store it in their existing house. There will be 2 lengths of 2x4s. There should be 36 12-footers and 100 8-footers. Start your sorting by finding 18 of the best 12-foot 2x4s for the roof. Check each board to see if there are any warps by sighting down its length. Avoid any twists, bows, or large knots. Set these 2x4s aside in a place where they will not be cut or disturbed. You'll need them for rafters for the roof. Be sure to stack them in a neat straight pile on level ground to make sure they don't warp. Stack all the rest of your lumber out of the way but reachable. You'll be going back to this pile a lot.
You'll need 6 of the remaining 12-footers and 1 8-footer to complete the form for the concrete slab. The inside dimensions of the form are 22 feet by 11 feet. And it should be a perfect rectangle. Arrange the 4 sides of the form in a spiral similar to this. Find several pieces of scrap wood that can be used as stakes. If you plan ahead, you could even bring these with you, or they can be made out of short pieces of 2x4 split with a hatchet or claw hammer. Once you have measured and placed the boards, nail them together at each joint. The nails should be left out of the wood 1/4 to 1/2 inch so that they can be removed later without damaging the wood. No matter how level your pad is, you'll still have to make sure that your form on the pad is straight, square, and level. Here's how. Start by nailing one of the long green 16-penny nails into each corner of the form and securely tie a tight string around them. This string should remain on the form until the cement is dry. It will show you if your form is straight or bowing. The 22-foot sides of forms have been known to bow in and out as much as 6 to 8 inches. The string should also never be tied around a sill anchor or other object. Otherwise, the string will not be accurate and your slab will be misshapen. Now that you're sure that the form is straight, you must make sure that it is square and level. Start by driving 3 stakes into the ground along one of the 22-foot sides. Use a long framing level on the top edge of this side to make it level. Use a string you already put on top to keep it straight. Now, nail the form to the stakes. If any part of the stakes stick up above the top of the form, cut them off with a saw. To square it, measure diagonally from corner to corner on both sides of the form. Adjust until the two measures match. Once the form is square, you can level the remaining sides, staking them twice at each corner and at least once in the middle. Now that the form is straight, square, and level, make sure not to walk on it, kick it, or roll the wheelbarrow over it.
Before you start pouring concrete, you must dig a trench around the inside of the form 1 shovel width wide and 6 to 8 inches deep. Put the extra dirt into the center area of the foundation. When filled with cement, this trench will act as the footing for the house. Next, place a 12-foot 2x4 across the form and measure how far down it is to the dirt. If it is more than 3 inches, fill it in with some extra dirt from other high areas of the foundation. The slab should be no more than 3.5 inches and no less than 2.5 inches thick. Now you are ready to begin mixing the cement. You can do this in a variety of ways, including in a wheelbarrow, in a large mixing bin, or on a board on the ground. You should mix the cement in a mixture of 1 shovel of cement to 5 shovels of sand and rock. If the sand and rock are separated at your site, mix 2 shovels of rock with 3 shovels of sand for every shovel full of cement. The amount you mix can be increased just so long as the ratio stays the same. Thoroughly mix the sand, rock, and cement before you add the water. It should have a uniform gray color. Add the water to the mixture slowly until the cement is the consistency of mashed potatoes. High-tech fibers strengthen the cement and prevent cracking later on. The fibers are added to the wet cement before it reaches the forms. The mixture is 1/5 of a bag of fibers to 1 sack of cement. Begin pouring the cement into the form. Pour in one direction, leveling as you go. To level the cement, use a 12-foot 2x4 to scrape the excess cement off into the low areas. This process is called screeding. It's a good idea to follow this up by troweling the surface smooth using a metal trowel. Once you have poured approximately 1/4 of the foundation, you should begin placing the sill anchors into the cement. These are used to secure the rest of the house to the slab. Place the anchors in a formation similar to this. They are 10 inches from the corner on each side and positioned so that there are at least 2 anchors along each wall panel. The cement should be wet enough for you to place the anchors into it by hand. If the cement is too dry, you may have to hammer the anchors in place. Be aware that this may weaken the cement around the anchors and cause them to break away from the slab later on.
The house is built out of 7 separate wall sections, 4 straight 11-foot sections, and 3 rake walls which are slanted to accommodate the angle of the roof. Be careful not to use the lumber you set aside earlier for the roof for any of the wall sections. The walls can be framed with the remaining 8-foot and 12-foot 2x4s, as well as the 12-foot 2x4s used in the cement form. Be sure the cement has been able to dry at least overnight before you strip the forms. 2 of the straight wall panels have 8-foot studs, and 2 have 6.5-foot studs. You'll have to cut all of the studs to the right length. A basic straight wall panel with no doors or windows is made up of 9 studs and 2 11-foot boards that are known as the header plate and footer plate. To frame the wall, place the 2 11-footers side by side, flush at the ends. Use a tape measure to mark a line every 2 feet from one end to the other. On the right side of the line, mark an X that will indicate which side of the line the stud should be placed. Mark both the header and footer in a similar manner. Spread the plates apart and put the studs in between them, one at either end, and then on each of their marks. Nail these boards in place using the larger green 16-penny nails. You should use 2 nails per joint. 2 studs are nailed sideways against the studs on either side of the wall section. These are called California corners. Remember to add doors and windows wherever the family wants them. As you'll see, the design of the Amore house is such that a door or window can be added to any wall panel. Simply adjust the location of any stud to accommodate a door by moving it over until the distance between it and another stud is 36 inches. Then place the door header at the 76-inch mark. Next, you'll build the 3 sloped walls that make up the ends of the house and the center dividing wall. These walls are called rake walls. Start with one 10-foot 5-inch 2x4, that is the footer plate on the bottom of the wall, and one 10-foot 6-inch 2x4, that is the top plate of the wall. You'll need one 6.5-foot stud and one 8-foot stud. Nail the 2 studs to opposite ends of the 10-foot 5-inch 2x4. Then nail the longer 10-foot 6 2x4 to the ends of these studs so that you end up with a large rectangle with one sloping side. Using a large framing square, square off the corners of the 10-foot 5-inch side. Nail the block diagonally across the corner to hold it square. Next, make marks every 2 feet on the 10-foot 5-inch side, just like you did on the 11-foot walls. Take 5 8-foot 2x4s and line them up centered on the marks you just made. They will hang over the 10-foot 6-inch edge because of the slope. Square the bottom of the studs against the footer and then mark the studs where they touch the header. This is where you cut them so they'll fit snugly between the header and the footer. Repeat this process for 2 more rake walls, adjusting studs as needed to accommodate doors or windows. The 2 outside rake walls and the 4 straight wall sections will all need fire blocks. Fire blocks are simply short pieces of 2x4 that run horizontally between studs. They slow the spread of fire in the wall cavity and provide structural strength. You'll be putting 3 fire blocks in between each and every stud. They should be spaced 2 feet apart and staggered slightly to allow for easier nailing. Mark a line every 2 feet from the bottom of the wall and then nail your fire blocks alternating above and below the lines.
Take the 18 12-foot 2x4s that you set aside earlier and cut 14 of them to 11-foot 9 inches. Take the 4 remaining 12-foot 2x4s and line them up even on each side. Measure and mark them every 2 feet like you did on your walls. These 4 will become the tops and bottoms of the 2 roof panels. Separate them into 2 pairs and place the 11-foot 9-inch rafters between them the same way you did with the studs in your walls. Center the rafters on the marks and nail them with 2 16-penny nails at each joint. Lastly, nail 3 blocks of 2x4 between the first and second rafter of each roof panel. These blocks are called outriggers. They help to support the overhang of the roof on the ends. Remember that you don't have to place fire blocks in the roof panels like you did in your walls. You only need outriggers and bird blocks. We'll talk about the bird blocks a little later on.
You're ready to stand the walls. To start, you must have straight lines on your cement slab to act as guides for placing your walls. Go to the corners of the foundation and measure 3.5 inches along the outside edges of the cement and make a mark. You will then snap a chalk line from mark to mark so that you end up with 4 lines, each 3.5 inches from the edge of the slab. Once this is done, take one of the 11-foot walls and stand it up on top of the slab along the 22-foot edge where it belongs, lining up the inside of the wall with the chalk line you just marked. Make sure the California corners are on the inside of the house. Line up the edge of the wall along the edge of the foundation or along the blue line. Nail the sill anchor to the wall. The next wall you should stand is the end rake wall that joins the 11-foot panel you just stood. Butt the end of the rake wall against the inside of the standing wall panel. Line it up along the chalk line on the inside of the slab. This is why the rake walls are built with a 10-foot 5-inch bottom plate, so they'll fit between the 11-foot walls. Stand the wall and nail it to the 11-foot wall with 2 16-penny nails every foot along the joint. Stand and nail all the remaining walls the same way, making sure the inside rake wall is in position before all of the outside walls are in place. The center rake wall is positioned over the joint where the 2 11-foot walls meet.
Next, you will need to plumb and brace all of the walls. To do this, place a long framing level on the outside of a wall at a corner and see which way it needs to move. Have a few members of your crew push the walls until the corner is straight. Nail a 2x4 diagonally across the inside of the wall to the top. Repeat this process on all the corners and on the center rake wall. Place the 2 roof panels on top. Be sure the outriggers are over the outside rake walls. Nail the roof panels together so they're even and the joint runs along the top of the center rake wall. Be sure to leave 6 inches of overhang on both 22-foot sides and 1 foot overhang over the rake walls. Be sure that the roof is square and nail down the low side of the house using 2 16-penny nails wherever a 2x4 touches the top. Now place blocks of 2x4s between all of the rafters and outriggers so that wind and birds can't get into the house. These are the bird blocks we talked about earlier. Once the roof panels are in place and square, you can start putting the plywood on. You will need 9 sheets of plywood measuring 4 foot by 8 foot. One of these will be cut in half. This is so the pieces can be staggered in a pattern like this. The 4-foot ends of the plywood should meet over a rafter. Nail the plywood to the roof using the smaller 8-penny nails. Place 4 nails in each rafter, making a total of 16 nails per full sheet of plywood. After the roof is completely nailed down, put the black felt paper on. Start by rolling the paper along the low 22-foot side. Leave 3 inches of paper hanging over all edges of the roof. Using the 1/2-inch aluminum roofing nails, nail or staple the paper down every 6 inches. The next section should overlap the previous one by 2 inches. Nail it down every 2 feet. Continue rolling the roofing paper down until the whole roof is covered. Now you'll apply the final roofing material, the gravel-covered composite paper. Follow the same pattern that you used for the felt paper, only nail the lower edge every 3 inches and the top edge every 2 feet. Be extra careful there are no bubbles or waves in the roofing paper, or else water will build up on the roof and cause leaks. Also be very cautious when driving the nails so that you won't rip the paper.
Now you should completely wrap the house in baling wire. You could have part of your crew working on this while another part is working on the roof. The wire is needed to add rigidity to the house and to act as a backing support for the tar paper of the walls. To attach the wire to the studs, you'll need to use the small aluminum roofing nails. Place the nails every 6 inches, measuring up from the bottom of the wall on both sides of every corner. The nails should also be placed every 6 inches on either side of a window or door frame. This is to ensure that the wire is not strung across the door or window. Lace the wire around the nails in a similar pattern to this. The wire should be as tight as possible and should be free of kinks or bends. To tighten the wire, pull it up at the first stud without nails in it. Nail the wire in place and move on to the next stud, this time pulling down. Alternate up and down, zigzagging the wire across the wall until it is very tight. Once the wire is in place, you can begin covering the walls in tar paper. Roll the first strip along the bottom of the wall and work your way up. Leave a 3 or 4 inch overlap between strips. Use tar babies to nail on the strips of paper. Make tar babies by cutting small squares of tar paper and fold them, then push roofing nails through. Now wrap the house in chicken wire. It'll hold the stucco in place. Start at a doorway, using the aluminum roofing nails to attach the mesh. Nail on the edge at the doorway and stretch the wire on the bottom until it's tight and nail it in place. Once the bottom is secured, begin pulling the wire up the wall along the studs until it's tight. Nail it in place. Make the wire tight so the stucco won't sag and fall off. Put a nail about every foot and try to eliminate any bubbles or bulges. Cut the wire at the windows. Attach the 1x4 trim to the inside of the windows and doors using the small 8-penny nails. This will act as a sill to stop the stucco and as a doorstop for the door.
The final phase of the house is covering the walls in stucco. This is a mixture of cement and sand. Mix half a bag of cement with 12 shovels of sand that's been sifted to eliminate the rocks. Before adding the water, mix the sand and cement thoroughly. Add water until the mixture is the consistency of mashed potatoes. Begin spreading the stucco on the wall, starting from the bottom, working your way up. Use a trowel to smear the stucco into the wire, always working in an upward direction. Be sure to leave the surface of the stucco grooved or rough. The final smooth surface will be added later by the family. Stucco all of the walls from top to bottom, leaving no holes. Once the stucco is complete, you've finished the house. Be sure to clean the site up and consult your Amora site representative for instructions on what to do with spare materials.
Over time, the Mexican family will add all of the touches of home. Soon it will be filled with the sights and sounds of family life. Curtains on the windows, food cooking on the stove, and love. Beginning with the love you have shown by donating your time and effort. For this, we thank you.